As a serious collector of collectibles, that's what collectors do, they collect collectibles, I often tout one of our biggest enemies is space. You eventually run out of room to put all this cool crap. When I was getting in this JAWS diorama from Iron Studios, I had no idea it was going to be this big.
That's what she...
They listed it as 1/20th scale, so I was like, yeah, it'll be easy to find room. But I've come to the conclusion, I'm going to need a bigger shelf. See what I did there? Here's to swimming with bow-legged women. As the Extreme channel is pushing towards 50,000 subscribers, these are just a few of the statues we are giving away on the journey there. If you want to know how to win one, stay tuned for later in the video. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. My name is Mr. X. This is the Extreme channel. We have another Extreme collectible. This time Iron Studios has brought us a 1/20th scale diorama from one of my favorite movies of all time. I've said this before on the channel. If you have a movie that while you're flipping through satellite or cable and it's on, you stop every single time to watch it, JAWS is that movie for me. One of my favorites from when I was a kid, still amazing today after almost 50 years. So I'm a huge JAWS fan, and I had the opportunity to get this huge, massive diorama in. Don't worry, it won't hit me. Maybe it will. I guess we're going to find out. But super excited to have it, so I'm going to review it for you guys because there's some questionable things on here, but there's some absolutely amazing things. Now, JAWS is one of my favorite movies of all time for so many reasons. Not just the fact that there's some really cool behind-the-scenes history. Definitely go Google that and check that out if you haven't seen it. Like the shark didn't work. They actually shot it in the cold time of the year. You know, some of the tricks they did to make you think it was a shark when they didn't even need to show the shark. I think the character development in this movie was absolutely amazing. The three main characters, Quint, Brody, and Hooper, you loved and hated them all at the same time. And their interactions with each other were just priceless. So huge fan of the movie for so many different reasons. And now I get to put the best scene in the movie pulled out of the screen and put into a 3D representation in real life. And I am stoked. So no pun intended, let's dive into the review and start looking at it. The head, the tail, the whole damn thing. So when we talk about concept of this piece, it's not a traditional statue like I do. Now, granted, it is a statue, that's what Iron Studios makes, but this almost reminds me of like a builder's kit or some of those huge ships that you see. It gives it this museum vibe, and so does this museum style base. I'm not normally a fan of these museum style bases, but I don't know what else they would have done to contain the water. And also, because this gives me more of a model vibe than a statue vibe, I think I'm okay with it. I actually quite like it, to be honest. And then they threw the nameplate on there. You're a follow the channel, you know I hate nameplates. If you don't know this is JAWS, why would you care? But again, it looks good because it follows that museum style. Then you have the waves just splashing absolutely everywhere. This is when Bruce, the shark, that's what they named the shark that would never work, is eating the orca from bow to stern, or stern to bow. I'm not a nautical guy. I live in the mountains. You see the barrels that were holding Bruce down. You see pieces of the ship. There's an Easter egg on the back where you see Hooper's cage, because Hooper's under the water during this part of the movie, if you remember. And Quint and Brody are on the inside. This is an exact scene. I actually threw the Blu-ray in right after I unboxed this. And as I was looking at Quint's ship, the Orca, my God, they got every single detail down. It is 100% accurate. Well, probably not 100%, but pretty damn close. I couldn't see any differences. So I think it's absolutely amazing. It's this iconic scene at the end of the movie where the shark's about to win. But spoiler alert, in the end, when the boat sinks, you actually have Roy Schneider on the very, very top right before it sinks, and he blows up the shark with a scuba container in its mouth and a bullet to it. So I absolutely love it. See our last bit of Quint, he went down fighting, although he screamed like a girl a little bit. The shark is eating him. I always wondered though when I was watching that scene, I don't know about you guys, looked like he just slid down on his back like he was on a slide. Why didn't he try and stop himself more? I would have. So anyway, I give the concept a 5 out of 5. The best scene from one of the greatest movies, and they nailed it. Design. Anytime you make something this elaborate, there's gonna be issues, and there definitely were some on here, but I kind of give them a little credit because they went so elaborate. Before we look at that stuff, here's the unboxing and assembly. 2 large boxes, which didn't surprise me. Some cool art boxes, they're exactly identical on the front and the back. Iron Studios uses straps and white foam. And I did have a few broken pieces we're going to talk about, but you can see all the pieces laid out here. Quite a few pieces. All right, so huge piece. It's 1/20th scale, means that in real life this would be 20 times bigger. But the base dimensions are about 21.5 inches by 13.5. For exact dimensions, go to Iron Studios website. There's a link in the description below. You can buy this. The widest part is about 44 inches or so. Might be a little bit off. Like I said, check out the website. And the tallest part is about 32. So very, very hard to display. Now this is assumably the front because of the JAWS logo. And you get a decent view of everything, but you get it from the other side as well. I almost feel like this needs to be a centerpiece. I'm going to try and display it with another diorama from a famous movie. This right here from Prime 1 Studio, this Balrog versus Gandalf. I think they're going to look great next to each other. Well, I think that's my favorite scene from Lord of the Rings, and I thought the movies were okay. They were entertaining. I think this is my favorite scene from JAWS, and the movie is amazing. And I bet you the budget for this movie was a hell of a lot less than those. Now let's talk about the issues. So first, there were no instructions and tons of little pieces as you saw. And some of those little pieces were broke when they came. However, really easy glue fixes on 2 of them, so not a huge deal. Because this, believe it or not, weighs a ton. The base has to weigh a ton to offset the weight of the ship. I don't know if you saw when I was assembling it, it almost tipped, so I had to put Bruce in right away. So moving this is going to be a bitch. The other part, the mixed media, this is actually fabric rope. You can't really tell where you tie it down to. You have to look at the pictures online. I think I got it right for some of them. Some of them I didn't put up because I think it looks fine with 4. I have 2 more long pieces of rope, and I think that would have just made it kind of cluttered. So I actually put those in the boat right over here, you can see. Then also the crank, some of the rope is supposed to be attached to this crank right here. Here's a picture of it. I think there's supposed to be a reel in the middle. Mine didn't have that. But based on the pictures, there's a reel because you could tie it up through here. So I think that's some issues, bad instructions or no instructions. Have to figure this out. Then the other part is some of the stuff like the fishing poles and the hooks and the spears on the side, they fall out pretty easy. They're not going to fall out if you don't touch them, but if you touch them, they will fall out. So like moving this is going to be a pain. Not that you would move something like this too often, but when you do, you probably have to disassemble it and then reassemble it, especially with the counterweights. So I think that's a negative. So definitely some big stuff here, but in the end, look at it. It works like it's supposed to. So I think that gives them huge props despite the issues. So it's a 4 out of 5 on the design. Paint and sculpt. They did really well. The one exception is, I think, the likeness on the portraits. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But here's some video for you on the paint and sculpt. All right, museum style base at the bottom, your standard museum style base. Kind of has this matte black on it, but it has a little bit of a shine to it almost. And maybe it's a reflection from the water, but they did an amazing job with this translucent resin. They added, white caps to it. I love the green water. I'm glad they didn't go too blue. I think this is more accurate of the movie. While it was in the ocean, it almost felt like it was a lake. So I think that's fantastic. And you see a bunch of stuff in here, from the barrels that were holding them down. Look at the detail on it, the rope around it, the broken back of the ship. There is the cage. Really, really phenomenal job on this water. It looks great. And then it's even spilling up into the boat, a few different places. And here is Bruce. Did a really nice job on the texture of his skin. I wish they would have added a little bit more wet effect because he wasn't out of the water that long, but maybe this is pretty accurate. And kind of hard to get a shot, but you do see the blood in the mouth. Paint could have been a little better there, but like with more of a red hue, but that's probably more accurate because it's dried blood. So I think while I like a more dark red, I think this is done well. There is Quint. You can't get a great shot of his face. Let me try and focus here. But with 1/20th scale pieces, the smaller you are, the harder it is to get details. And likeness in characters is difficult anyway. So I think that's a little bit of a miss on the portraits, but I understand why. But I love all the details. You see the container he's about to eat. You see the life vests that they put on. Fire extinguisher. Flares. So much cool stuff. Now, it's hard for me to show you, but if you look in the cabin here, without my bright lights, you can see every little detail. Like I said, this really reminds me of a model. Look at the ladder, the exhaust, the spears, more of the barrels up front. And I love the boat. The paint on the boat really gives it that old effect. And the accuracy, as we talked about, even like the light. I wish they had some light up features right there and on the light up here. I think that would have been great. Look at the floorboards. Just an amazing paint job on the boat, in my opinion, which is the majority of the diorama as well. But so many details, you could literally just spend hours looking at it. In my opinion, very strong paint and sculpt, especially knowing this is 1/20th scale. Again, the smaller you get, the harder it is to recreate those. The wood paneling on the door looks great. Some water splashing up on the boat. Very, very impressive to me. Keeping in mind, this is 1/20th scale. That's kind of what I'm doing with the rankings. And I do like the fact that they used real fabric rope. I think that gives quite a bit of realism to it. Great job, Iron Studios. Starting with the paint, I absolutely love it. The water effect is great. They did a good job with Bruce. I think they could have made him a little more wet on the back like we talked about, but the boat is phenomenal. I think the paint's a 5 out of 5. I am really impressed. I think the sculpt on the figures downgrades it a little bit because they are an important part of the plot. And then some of the stuff we looked at, like the life ring, could have been better. So I think it's a 4 out of 5 on the sculpt, but still done very well. Now, the biggest problem with this diorama, other than where to display it, is the fact it's really expensive. It's $3,000. That is a lot of money. Now, you get a lot. There's no doubt about that. And I don't know how much the JAWS license is. I assume it's a lot. And the problem with really putting a value on this piece is I can't really put a value because I don't know how many they made. It just says limited edition on the base, on the box, and then nothing on the website. So while I'm not going to grade the value, if they made like 100 of these and that was it, I think it's a very high value. I think a lot of people would like this because, like I said, in my mind, it's a great collectible that people who build models, people who love the movie, people who love statues all would want. But if the edition size is 500 or 1,000, probably not. Then it's just way too much money. Overall, does this have the X factor? Is it a 5 out of 5 statue? Is it something you look at and you're like, wow, that is absolutely amazing? I 100% think it is. This is awesome. I am so glad I had the opportunity for this. 5 out of 5 for me. Very, very impressive piece. If you're a JAWS lover like me and you like collecting stuff related to the movie, this is 100% something to have. And again, there's a link in the description below if you want to pick it up. I really like it. I'm a huge fan. Iron Studios did a fantastic job. What is the one movie that when you're flipping through the channels it's on and you have to stop? Throw that down in the comments below. I asked you to comment because I love to interact with you guys, and you could win a statue in an upcoming giveaway. We will be giving all of these statues away, plus additional ones at every 5,000 subscriber milestone. To win one of these statues, all you have to do is make sure you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, you've hit that bell notification, and then just drop a comment below. Every 5,000 subscriber milestone, we are going to do a random drawing and pick a random comment and give one of these statues away, plus some additional ones I'm not showing right now. The more videos you comment on, the higher your chances are to win. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Iron Studios for making such an awesome piece. I absolutely love it. Again, throw that comment below. At the very least, give me a like because I have to take this apart and then put it back together and move it and try and figure out what a good display option is for it. I really appreciate you guys. Take care of yourself. Talk to you soon.